day. It's Monday. The total subscribers are going down as the Prime subs are wearing out. Oh, I didn't get my my what's it called up. Let's get the VTuber up and running. Uh-oh. What's all this about? Got to get that VTuber up. That's how people know I'm really, really online. That's how you know it's me. Good morning, Del Monster. Good morning, Punk Logics. How's it going? I'm here. I made it. I feel like it's been a long time since I did a study. I didn't work over the weekend. Also, the stream beats. Thank you so much, Dustin. Yeah, I didn't work over the weekend. I've had this tradition of doing weekly studies and having them be like my best studies every single week. And then this weekend I just couldn't be fucked. You know, I was just like, I don't really want it. I don't really care. I just want to sit here and play clicker games. And yeah, it's a sign. Okay, let's turn this down a little bit. I got my knobs. And I knew that I've been a little bit lower on energy recently, partially because the Kickstarter has been taking it out of me. Kickstarter's been going fantastically. We just got the ads up and running. So I'm going to keep an eye on those. That might be the key for us to blow the top off of this thing and have it be the largest Kickstarter I've ever done. Instead of me posting my ass off every single day, I'm going to be running some ads. Make sure that it gets into people's inboxes. And with that, the pressure gets taken off me to a certain degree. All right. I pulled this reference off of Pinterest, and it's not the sort of ones I typically excel at. So I'm going to try to make sure that I just like make this thing the way that feels comfortable for me instead of worrying about it being exactly right. I think I can get I need to get a sense on what's actually happening with the body rather than try to trace all the wiggly lines. Got this nice line of action coming through the shoulder, down into the knee, and then out to the foot. Severe rain. Hello, welcome. Much more dynamic pose than usual. Yeah, I love those like sort of seated portrait pieces. I feel like the kind of things I like to paint, and also they come kind of easily to me. And so constantly trying to see how deep I can go with those on studies is really fun. Oh, you've been doing them along with me. That's nice. Yeah, I've been really hoping, more than anything, that me doing these in public spaces inspires people to do a few of their own. I've really enjoyed the process. Yeah, I took this week off from it, or this weekend off from it, because, my energy level, it goes up and down. Focus grows and wanes. Gesture drawings all weekend, trying to get my bodies not to look so stiff. Nice. Yeah, usually when my energy starts to go down, I can usually continue to take care of all the things that are really important. So I'm supposed to get my tarot piece done in the next 5 days. I might be a little late on it, but I definitely want to at least post a really good update to Patreon, because I've been getting work done on it, just bit by bit. Obviously, I'm not trying to keep the exact proportions of the original piece here. I find it easier when I'm trying to like find where these things are in the pose, that I draw them a little oversized and then shrink them down. Borders of the page, they always feel like so limiting. I love the motion on the hair. I wonder if I can blow that up a little bit. And then what's that going over her face? Is that like a strap? Is it from the overalls? Is that strap like going crazy over there? Month just painting still life and lost my character fluidity. Oh, I don't know. You didn't lose it. That's the thing, is like once you train up those abilities, they're never gone. Just you need to like reactivate them every once in a while. That's what I realized. Like I thought I had like lost the ability to do character work because I was trying to draw faces a few months back, and I like could not do it. I was really stinking. And so, but once I started doing the studies, I was in better shape than I'd ever been. Yeah, so it is like a certain amount like an athlete. You know, you've got to like, you know, stay active in a skill in order to keep going, in order to like be at the top level with it. Let's see. I'm running into the barriers of this, the edge of the canvas pretty hard here. I feel like I'm maybe pulling my punches on the drawing a little bit because I'm trying not to run into the edge of the canvas. The age I started creating art. Hey Jay, what's up?
Hey man, I was just wondering, would you mind streaming in the Discord?
Oh, in the art discussion hall or whatever?
The live on Twitch, yeah.
Oh, I took away that one. Why?
Oh.
Huh? What's up?
Oh, I think he means broadcasting to the stage.
Oh, broadcasting to the stage. Shit, I see what you mean. Oh, okay. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to hit the video button here. All right, yeah, I set the V cam, but I forgot to hit the thing. You're right. I see what you mean.
Thank you.
The question was, what age did I start creating art, and what age did I start considering myself professionally creating? Oh. I started making art when I was 16. I just woke up one day and I was like, damn, I'm gonna draw. And I went and I hunted up all of the art supplies around the house. And I started working on them from there. So it was just sort of a spontaneous thing that happened when I was 16. And then when I was in college, I think it was one of my last years, I think it was maybe my junior year of college, I had a big epiphany with my art where I realized that I could make art at like basically a professional level if I were to commit to working at a professional level. That if I were to give myself an unlimited budget of time, that I could I'm trying to figure out where the body pose is underneath the clothes here. Like, if I gave myself an unlimited budget of time, that I could theoretically make work that was on par with professionals. And I was enjoying playing around with that. I was able to make about one piece per quarter in that way, because like I would rely on the stress of getting near finals in order to feel like I was in order to get like the motivation to like push myself to like really work at that level required me to like be avoiding something else. Like art had to be an escape for me to be able to do that. And so I started doing that like about every time when my schedule got really crunched up around finals. I would make like a big iconic painting. It would be my most professional work. And those pieces sometimes got published in like art annuals and stuff. Like I got recognition for them on online spaces and like, you know, alongside professionals, and I was being published in art annuals. But I wasn't working professionally. What was funny about that work was that I was able to get professional jobs off of it every once in a while, but I wasn't actually able to like do those jobs. There's a couple of times where I got hired outside of college, right out of college, and I almost immediately got fired because I was just like, my portfolio showed that it looked like I should be able to do this stuff, but then when I actually got the gigs, I didn't actually have all the technical skill to know how to do it. I was relying on vibes entirely. So there was this like lag. And then, I got a job straight out of college. So immediately when I was like 23, 24, something like that, I got a job as an artist professionally, working at a shovelware company, making My Little Pony games. And I don't know if that counts as being professional or not. I was selling stuff at cons literally throughout the entire time I was making art from when I was 16, and I had these like drawings with lined notebook paper with like simple anime characters on them. I was sitting down at tables and trying to like sell those to people. Basically, it's within a couple of months of me like trying to start art. So I had gotten paid like my first $1 from art like basically instantly from beginning to try it. And I got a job as soon as I got out of college, but I wasn't able to like do art on command for work, like illustration work on demand or concept art on demand for like years until after that. So there wasn't like a threshold where I was like, there was a before and after. It was more along the lines of like, it was this galaxy of skills that were slowly assembling. I just always treated it seriously, even when I wasn't serious yet. And then when it came time to like, you know, a few years into me doing concept art at a bigger studio and like having worked on Magic the Gathering's concept art team and like having a process for concept art and like being recognized for my illustration more broadly, after that point, I actually did feel like competent in being able to do concept art and illustration on command. And that's the point where I felt like I was like properly professional and not just somebody like a talented amateur who had like snuck in. But that was like years into my career. I already had like a salary and like was engaged and like I was full-time job in art and all that kind of stuff was already well established by the point where I actually felt like I could do the gig, which in a way was proof to me that like these like barriers of qualification that people lay out for themselves for other people basically just not real. Oh, hey Peacock, welcome. Yeah, happy to donate. I told you I was going to donate. I felt, as soon as I opened my mouth, I was like, I better back this up. Hey, you've been talking a little bit about, you know, what it's going to take to become a professional artist. So, like, this conversation, I feel like overlaps with your whole thing. And I'm just like, yeah, you can do it. It's fine, no big deal. But like, when the conversation is more narrowly focused on like, hey, I want to be in this particular art team at this particular company, then you're talking about not just like when you talk about being a professional artist in sort of abstract terms, there's really no great definition, and people can just kind of bullshit their way through it, and it's like, it's good that's true. But then when it comes to like specific individuals, like specific gatekeepers, an art director at a studio or whatever, they can then, they might have different opinions about, hey, you're good enough, you're not good enough, this is what we need, this is not what we need, we desire these specific skill sets, and all of that it goes from this very vague sense of, hey, I need to, I should be professional, which is like this incredibly vague thing to like, am I hireable in this specific job, in this specific organization, under this specific art director? We had a community member who got a job straight out of college, and then he was almost immediately fired. And by his explanation of it, it was like he was doing fine in the job, but he was hired by a guy in the studio while the main art director was out of town on vacation. And when the main art director got back, he's like, I don't want to deal with this guy's shit, and then just fired him instantly, just because it was like, it was not his hire, he was not, he didn't feel the same way about his work, and it was just over. And it's like, of course you would feel like a huge blow to like your self-esteem, because you say like, somebody's just walked in the room and told me, I'm not good enough. But it's just like, it's some fucking asshole, who's got his own little fiefdom, who just has his own opinions about you. It has absolutely nothing to do with like you as a human being. And like, but it's still, it's like, it's very easy for us to all get wrapped up in that conversation. So the question about like, whenever anybody asks, about whether or not someone is professional, or like what it means to be professional, I always end up like feeling like I want to interject with this long ass rant. It's not about, there's no universal definition of it, and also there's no like point in trying to create a universal definition for it. Like, we're all kind of surfing our own wave. Yeah, the second you get a $10 commission from your aunt, you can be a professional, which means I was a professional about a month after starting drawing. Which, I mean, that's one way to define it. I don't know if that would be, I think at the time I was very, when I first started drawing, I was very much like, I believed that I was way better than I was, like really heavy into the Dunning-Kruger effect. And I was thinking, oh yeah, well, I'm better than this guy, I'm better than that guy. I've been drawing for a month. And I thought because I had drawn something pretty good once, that basically meant I was like a career artist. And looking back on it, I don't think that was the truth of it, but also like, who's to say? So maybe my asshole teenage self was correct, and that I was a professional artist the whole time. A month. Yeah, a month. Yeah, a month in, I went to Anime Central in Chicago. I got an artist alley table, which at the time was $10. And I sat down with a paper folder full of lined notebook paper with a few anime drawings on it. I laid them out, and I told people I was taking commissions for $1 a minute. And so I did like 10 minutes worth of shitty drawing, and I'd like charge someone $10 for it. And sometimes they just like give me like 3 or 4 and like walk away. It was a profitable weekend for somebody who had no job and no expectations. I was stoked on it. That was definitely a different time for the whole artist alley culture. You've been making a living for over 10 years, so clearly opinion isn't very felt. Yeah, I remember when I was at a workshop in my first concept art gig. We went to this workshop, and one of my coworkers, who was like the art lead, he was sitting next to me at this thing, and somebody asked the question, who in the room is a professional artist? And he didn't raise his hand, and he was like sort of mumbling to himself. He's like, nah, I don't really feel like I'm a professional, not compared to these guys. It's like, he was an art lead at a major studio. Okay. Clearly the opinion about this stuff isn't, people's self-opinion about this stuff, the self-reporting on it is not that important. All right, this is a good enough structure. I feel pretty happy with this. I'm gonna, instead of like blocking it out with the close, it's just so much easier for me to have this sort of loose aesthetic block out of like what I feel like the body is kind of shaped like. I was thinking about this question of anatomy a lot recently, and like what knowing anatomy means. Again, a kind of vague term. And like, I think that when people think about knowing anatomy, there's like this academic knowing of like, I know what all the muscles and bones are called, and I know like where all the tendons connect, and I know the names of everything. I don't know the names of a lot of stuff. I've learned more names of muscles from exercise than I have from drawing. Like, I think about the body as a series of shapes and not as a specific set of like named anatomical pieces. And like being able to know it on that intuitive level, I think has its advantages over knowing it all from a purely academic kind of medical level. Because at the end of the day, we care about the way that the gesture expresses itself, not in the reality of how a body is really built. I just pick whatever speaks to me that comes across my Pinterest. As Albert, thanks for diving into the weekly challenge. I think our weekly challenges are fun. I haven't done any of them yet because I'm kind of like juggling everything and busy, and I also want to leave the space for the community and not like feel like I'm taking it over personally. I don't want to feel like there's people in the community that are very early on in their art journeys, that is to say that they're not so good at art yet, and I don't want them to feel like they're being forced out because it's like, the bar is being set at a certain level, or like that you have to have a certain level of experience or whatever. I just want people to feel comfortable coming in and like having fun with it at every skill level. So I feel like that keeps me out a little bit, but I'm trying to make challenges that would be the sorts of ones that I'd have fun with if I were going to be doing them. But yeah, I think this idea of like intuitive understanding of anatomy, I think is, if I could go back and redo everything about my education, I really don't think I would want to redo the way that I learned anatomy in this intuitive way, as opposed to a more academic and medical way. Because I think I got a lot about what people like about my style and what I enjoy about working on art doesn't come from a like academic. I don't think that an academic understanding of anatomy would have helped. I think it only would have made me second guess some of my like favorite creative choices over the years. I think that a lot of the things that are weird about my art, that create its style, that create the interest that makes me happy and makes other people like enjoy it, I think that comes from the parts that I get wrong. And that it's like, it's the bits of the I don't know if I need to layer all these. I think the parts about my art that are like keep me going and also draw people to it are all rooted in like my misunderstanding of things. And like, I think I'd have to unlearn some stuff in order to get back to that point. So I'd have to not only go all the way deep into learning and understanding art from a anatomical level, or the anatomy from like a medical perspective, but then I would have to go back and undo parts of it and redo the bits that I would be learning, like all the kind of more shapy parts of art of anatomy. My vocabulary is not great today. My art level is pro without any doubt. The red-tailed black cockatoo. So the god of the red-tailed black cockatoos. Sounds good. LGN, hello. Alright, I keep having this thing happen where I'm like most of the way through the study. I'm at like hour 90 and I go, or not hour, I'm at minute 90 and I'm like, oh, you know what? I should chill. I need to like keep things flowing instead of like being too rigid about it. And it's at that point where things start to like ease up and I start to really enjoy the whole thing. I'm gonna merge these down because I want to lengthen this leg. And I don't think I can do it off of, I don't want to do it across multiple layers. I just want to do it on this one. So I'm going to try to remember to come at this from a little bit more of a gestural perspective earlier on and see if I can get that vibe going earlier and see if that helps with like the whole process. Structurally though, I was a little worried about this because it is such a dynamic pose. We're seeing this woman like fly into the air and twisted, and she's also got these clothes on that sometimes that make it a little bit hard to read the anatomy, a little bit harder to read the pose, but I don't feel lost at the moment. So if I'm in a good spot now, I think I might be in a good spot all the way through to the end. Let's hope. I've sometimes had confidence and it turns into a false confidence. You're flying in a few hours. Got a bunch of photos loaded up on my iPad to study on the flight. Wow, that's dedication. Unless you're like really enjoying it that much. I usually just like load up my iPad on like I don't play a lot of iPad games unless I'm traveling. I just want to teleport to wherever I'm going. I'm so impatient. I'm so childish about it. So I load up I like create a blank save for Kingdom Rush. And I see if Kingdom Rush will melt away a good 3 or 4 hours. $17-hour flight. Ooh, wow. So you're going from Singapore maybe out to the States? Not to blow up your OPSEC or anything. Going in to visit HQ. You tripped and smashed your phone and sprained your ankle the day before the flight? Oh my god. Hong Kong to Canada. Oh, okay. Yeah, one of the things that makes me now want to go visit some of the parts of Asia I really want to visit is just the length of the flight. Knowing it's going to be like 17 hours each way. That once I'm like totally done with the trip and I really want to be home, that I've got like a 17-hour flight ahead of me. The Kindle and the Switch, yeah, I mean the Switch and the iPad is enough to get me through just about anything. That and the other thing I use to melt time, which is actually healthy, is I found it's really easy for me to meditate for really extraordinary amounts of time on a flight, that I put on white noise, and then I just don't set a timer, and I just challenge myself to seeing how long I can do breath focus meditation, and I can usually do it for like 45 minutes to an hour undisturbed if I just like commit, because I know there's nothing that's going to come up that's going to interrupt me. Meditate on a flight? You never tried? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big time meditator. It's just like, for me, like a space where I'm not needed for anything. And I know that I don't need, the world doesn't need my input. I'm not like expected anywhere. Like the world is just going to happen and I'm just there as a passenger. It's very easy for me to just like completely commit to the idea of meditation for like a random amount of time, just like a just challenge myself to see how far I can go and just assume I'm just gonna last forever. And I'll set a timer that's just like a stopwatch that's just going up instead of down. Instead of trying to do like, I mean, it's not like anyone's gonna tap you on the shoulder and ask you to start piloting the plane. If you're in a window seat, it's easier. But yeah, that's like the one kind of healthy or productive thing that I do to while time on a flight is I've got the most inconsistent meditation practice of all time, but I'm like a power meditator on a flight. Sleeping pills, easy flight. Yeah, the other trick is just getting fucking wasted in the what do you call it? I'll just have like 3 beers inside the if I can. This is not my regular strategy, but I will sometimes just like have 3 beers in the terminal for the flight, and it is like sometimes just like time traveling. Like I tried taking an edible once before a flight, and it was interminable. Like Florida to Chicago felt like I was going over the entire Pacific Ocean. It took forever. But like if I can get a few beers in me, I just like I'm vibing and then I'm there. I've tried doing art. I'll bring my sketchbook in my carry-on. Like it's not like I'm not like giving it an attempt. I've never pulled out the sketchbook and been like, damn, I'm so glad I brought this. I'm having a great artistic experience up here. I'm over 6 foot, and I don't feel like I fit inside the seats. And then when people in front of me, they lean their seat back, they're just like crushing my knees. The idea of holding something in my lap in a way that is going to stay there for a long time, it just doesn't feel reasonable. Like I just don't feel like I can curl up in a way around a sketchbook or an iPad where I'm working on it. It feels like it'll work. Yeah, I think. But I mean, I've known people that are about my size. They say that like they work more productively on an airplane than anywhere else in the world. So I know it's possible. There's people out there doing it. I think I'm gonna have to do something. I think I'll do a soft brush on the background once I cut the background in. Disproportionately short legs. Oh my god, that's convenient for airline travel. Peak airline proportions. Simply not sleep the night before. I have a hard time not sleeping. I love sleeping. I would wonder if maybe, like, I kind of want to, I haven't done international travel a lot in the last few years, but I would kind of be curious about taking some of those melatonin. Because melatonin's always really worked for me with jet lag, like recovering from jet lag and stuff. I get along with melatonin just fine. I know some people have weird reactions to it. I wonder if I could time the flight in a way where I was starting to like really get, like it was the right time for me to go to bed at the time where I was in the time zone of where I was arriving. And like make it so that I was already pre-slept for the flight like for the arrival. I think you'd have to time it just right. Take medicine to feel sleepy every day. Ooh. I know you're like a late night streamer. You're up right now. I know it feels like everyone I know is either like a morning person or a night person, and most of the artists I know are night people. They do this thing where they stay up late, and then when they are when it gets past the point where everyone goes to bed and the whole house is quiet, the whole world's asleep, they like can do their absolute best work. And I hear this from people and I go, nah, I'm brain dead during those hours. I just, all I can do is sit and watch TV and prolong going to sleep. In the morning, 5 a.m., give me a couple of minutes to get my eyes open, and that's when I can do all of my best work. My ability to focus is way up in the morning. I can get to projects. If my mental health's in a good spot, I can be like, I'm gonna strap a light to the front of my bike and I'll bike to the gym at 5 a.m. Like one of those like alpha grind set guys. I don't think it makes me better than people, but I do know that like my internal clock works super well with that kind of alpha grind set schedule. Little past midnight. Yeah, 5 a.m. is like, what's funny is I've got a kind of scarily accurate internal clock. So I have my alarm set these days. My default alarm is 5:55. And I will consistently wake up at 5:54, roll over, see the clock, open up my alarm app, and turn the alarm off 1 minute before it goes off at 5:55 in the morning. That's like a semi-regular occurrence for me. But then when I don't set the alarm, if I've been doing that several days in a row, I will wake up at 5:55 with no alarm. And I won't be able to go back to bed, so I'll just wait. I'll just get up. I'll just get to it. And like people I think artists need one or the other. Just like that little private time when you feel like you're really alone and everyone else is asleep. It's like everyone needs that, and that can either come in the morning or the evening, and it doesn't really matter if it's one or the other. I don't really feel like I feel sometimes envious of night people being able to have that in the evening, but I've never been able to do it. Dustin's blowing me up here. He's saying that back in the day, I used to pass out at parties at like 10 or 11 p.m. It used to be so bad of me falling asleep in the center of a raging party, sitting upright in a chair, that I started to pop caffeine pills before I would show up to a party. Because at first it was me trying to chug a pot of coffee before I would arrive at the party because it was so embarrassing to like be falling asleep like that. And then I realized you can get the same amount of caffeine by just popping caffeine pills. So I just had caffeine pills I would take. And then they invented the alcoholic energy drinks and we would just like drink Sparks. And so it was like the solution then was like just drink alcohol at the party that like had the caffeine already in it. And that was like my trick. But that as I've gotten older, alcohol stopped putting me to sleep and started waking me up. So I don't have that issue anymore. Yeah, first it was Sparks and then it was Four Loko, back when Four Loko original recipe was around. Now it's just this thing of legend that people talk about. So what I'm thinking is like, I might just build in a bit of a gradient here. Because one of the learning lessons I had there was that one ballerina girl with the long neck that totally fucked me up. And part of the problem was I was trying to just like ignore the background. and there was tons of like light leak over part of the figure, and I was trying to just paint it correctly and then cut the background out and have a darker background, but keep all the light leak that was going up over the top of the figure. And it was, I think, the worst experience I've ever had doing a study. And so now I'm just committed to, like, if there's going to be a bunch of glare over the top of a figure like this, I need to build that into the background. So if I have a glare in the background, I need to build the value into the background a little bit, and that's going to help a lot. So I think that rather than like wait till it's later to try to like work all that in, I think I'm just going to try to lay in a little soft brush at this stage and wash some of this out, and then start it like overwashed out and maybe carve in a few shadows as I go through the later process. I remember kids being able to buy Four Loko because cashiers didn't know they had alcohol. Yeah, that was our era too. 38. Yep. Yeah. Same era. Yeah, I'm turning 40 in like a couple weeks. You forgot about Sparks? Do you remember that Dave got that, like, it was like Andy gave Dave like a pallet of Sparks or something, or like there was like a pallet of Sparks that showed up over at that apartment, and I'm not sure it was acquired legally. I think Andy like found like a pallet, like them like loading in stuff behind a liquor store, and stole an entire pallet of Sparks and then gave it to Dave, and then just like sat in the kitchen and we just like mined it for months. But I'm pretty sure that he didn't, like, as a generous gift for his friend, decide to buy an entire pallet of Sparks. I think it was ill-gotten. He was just DMing me on Facebook. I should ask him. I don't remember who gifted the pallet of Sparks, but I mean that they had the weird Sparks glassware that looks like a beaker. For shading, do you have any advice? For some reason, I felt like my paint experience as a 5-year-old boy, so it's frustrating. You're young here at 34, right? There's other people in here that are younger than that, I'm sure. Painting experience is a weird thing. It's like people have expectations about what their painting should look like. Personally, I found that like some people have they kind of get a vibe with painting where the process just kind of makes sense to them, and other people it just eludes them. It just makes them frustrated and mad, and they feel like lost. And I think that like you should work in a way that ultimately gives you a sense of like control and comfort. And if that means that you're kind of skipping out a little bit on painting, then like it's not a problem. Yeah, don't usually feel young on Twitch. There's like people of all ages around Huckleberry. It's like we've got some community members that are teens, and then we've got ones that are older than me. And, you know, the interest in art, I don't think is really like an age-bound kind of thing. I'm moving kind of slow and cautiously on this today. Just taking it easy. It's the ones where I feel like I need to like perform and I need to like show off that I know what I'm doing, that they go really sideways. So if I feel a little bit of pressure, like I haven't been doing these in a few days, and like feel like it's a challenging reference, rather than like make it hard on myself by also, you know, breaking my own back, I'm just gonna like take it slow and easy. No cap, for real, on God. I had one of the other parents that I know was complaining that their kids started calling them bro, and my wife was like, "Oh, Pete got our kid to stop saying bro almost instantly by just calling him bro all the time and making it uncool." And that wasn't my plan. I mean, and then I realized it kind of was my plan. Deep down, I was like, that really was the plan the whole time. Because I always thought it was so funny. Because I'd hear on Discord, there'd be some young kid who'd be like, bro. And so when my kid came home from school starting to do that, I started doing it back to him because I thought it was funny. And he immediately stopped thinking it was a good idea. He realized that it was a dumb affect, and like and that like if you wanted people to talk to somebody, you shouldn't do that. And like and he like dropped it instantly around the house. Thought it was so funny. But I guess that's like the strategy to like get somebody to stop doing an annoying affect like that, is just do it back at them like unironically. I think the bro thing is really funny. As like a cultural signifier, I'm looking forward to like 10 years from now when everyone can date like the early 2020s, because they just say like bro, and everyone's like, oh yeah, like the 20s, like they did in the 20s. I remember. Call me Naka saying I hate painting, therefore starting to apply more and more layers of cell shading on line drawings. After a certain point, I found my method works, like faking 3D reflections. Fake it till you make it. Yeah, you gotta work in a way that like jives with your sense of like how you see the art, how you see the work. Whatever makes sense to you is the right way to work. Any number of ways of like kind of decoding all this stuff. You really don't need to do it in a specific way. Even if there's these kind of established camps that people have built up over the years, like you don't need to participate in any of them. Just do it the way that seems right to you. Alright, yeah. The face, it's like, oh, I shouldn't fuck this up. I should keep it, I should make sure I do it right. And really what I need to do is keep it loose. So it's kind of like evil clown here right now. Wait, what am I looking at? Yeah. The ability to, where your like perception kind of leapfrogs your actual ability. Yeah, you know, it's like the art blocks. Everyone worries about it. I'm like, I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think you need to worry about like, oh, I've stopped learning, I've stopped growing. Most of the people who are worried about that are like right in the middle of like doing a ton of learning and growing. The people who are justifiably freaked out about it are like the people who are in their 30s, who are working professionals, who feel like they haven't learned anything in the last 10 years. And like they look back over work from like 10, 15 years ago and they're like, this is not worse than what I'm doing today. But like for most people who are actively learning in the process of like building their skills for the first time, you can just chill and just keep going, and like you're almost certainly going to be all right. I don't know why I'm drawing this strap in. I should just draw the face without the strap. It'd be easier. Draw the strap in over the top. Been thinking about art blocks as learning, growth, studying periods, and it's helped a lot. Feeling bad about them. Yeah, I mean, I'm describing it because it's like a super common situation. Like, it's like, I've had a few different kind of mental tricks over the years to sort of like try to trick myself around the kind of standard narratives that crop up. Like whenever I'd have an art block and I would really struggle to get a drawing going, I had this idea that like there was this god, it's like sort of deity that would swoop in, or like a malicious deity would swoop in and kidnap my ability to make art, and that it was demanding a certain number of bad drawings in order to be satisfied and then swoop away back into the cosmos. Like the god of bad drawings required its tithe. And that if I would paid it, it would just leave. And rather than bemoan it, I would just be like, well, okay, it's time to pay the bad art god. It's fine. Like, He's an asshole, but he'll go away if I just give him what he wants. And so I just don't bother like getting too fussed about it. Keeps me from freaking out. It's been useful for a long time. Yeah, the god of bad drawings would be a fun thing. I really should do an illustration of him, because there's, you know, it's really easy sometimes to put these kinds of supernatural sort of art experiences, like the muse or, you know, the god of bad drawings, as like to think about them in more practical terms. I keep thinking that I should do illustrations of these kinds of things. Actually, there's a character I have drawn a couple of times that I think of as like what the personification of my own muse looks like. His name's Cabbage Head. I have an acrylic painting of Cabbage Head in my office that I treasure. I've refused to sell it a couple of times, and like, because I was thinking, you know, it's the best acrylic like painting I've done. And so I want to keep around this thing that is like this, you know, this sign. It's like, I feel like it's this little totem, this little blessing from like my muse, you know, just letting me make a cool little painting, and like it's intended to be of, you know, the muse. I don't really think about it in that terms most of the time, but it's fun to indulge in these little fantasies. Hello, Morty Mouse. Yeah, God of Bad Drawings is a fun concept, and it's like everyone deals with that feeling, and so it's like it's a useful thought technology. I wonder if there are other kinds of deities that can be personified to kind of explain the internal sensations we experience in an effort to try to, like, you know, externalize these things instead of laying them so hard on ourselves. The trouble often is that we get wrapped up in the feeling, and so like we let it kind of take over, and it can feel really, really overwhelming at times. So I think externalizing these feelings can help a lot, turning them into gods and things. I mean, that's kind of the whole Angelarium project, is externalizing internal, you know, feelings and ideas and stuff. So doing it in a way that like correlates back to education is probably a good idea for me to do at some point. You know, it's the median point between my two big projects right now. And the thing about the God of Bad Drawings also is this is an original idea of mine. I didn't actually steal from some self-help book or something. So I can own this as a piece of advice, like, thoroughly, and like, you know, feel like I get to take credit for it, which most of the advice I have in the world I've borrowed from some other smart source. It's one of the very few Pete Mohrbacher originals. Maybe it'll enter the canon someday. All right, loose. I gotta keep it looser. It's hard to stay loose when you feel like people are watching you. I think that's one of the things that gives me an easier time to do studies when I'm not streaming. Something I'm like working on getting over. Posting is not a huge thing. Says you. I know so many people who freak out at the idea of posting. I could draw something saying I should draw something. Yeah, should is one of like my least favorite words in artistic vocabulary. I feel like should is always like, it's one of the absolute worst things you could say. I find that when somebody's like really, really stuck and they're like really wrapped up in their head, they tend to say should a lot when it comes to like their goals. I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And it's just like, it's this curse word. Like in a more classical sense of a curse. It's like they're... It's like it feels like an evil concept almost. The idea of should. I try to avoid saying it, and so sometimes I'll end up saying things in really convoluted ways in an effort to avoid saying should. Like, it would be effective if I were to so-and-so. It sounds stupid. It sounds like awful therapy speak, but it's like, it really is like, I have this deep-seated like distaste for the idea of shouldness. I've watched people dump years of their life into should and regret it. There's something really productive about treating art in a more hedonistic way. Not everything in our life is made better by us just seeking pleasure, but something about art feels like it really adds to the mix. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't used to have a problem with posting, and then there was a period of time where I had a really hard time with posting. It got so bad that I hired someone to post for me. Not because I didn't have the time, but because it was such an emotionally draining activity that if I did it, it would take away from other stuff I was doing during the day. And it would like it was like a drain on my whole like business and my productivity, everything. So I paid somebody to help me out with it for a while. And then when I kind of like changed my relationship with my work and with like being seen as a public person, I like when I like was in a more mentally healthy state, I ended up taking it back over again. And now like posting doesn't really bother me the way it used to. So it's like I've gone to both ends of the extreme of like posting is easy and posting is hard. And so when somebody tells me they have a hard time posting, I relate to it really strongly, but I also am not suffering from it at the moment. If it ever gets bad again, I'm just going to immediately reach to like, yeah, pay somebody, like be like, or ask for help at the very least. Like ask my wife to start posting on my behalf. Like we don't have these hangups about posting other people's stuff, just our own. So like, I think the easiest solution for someone who's stuck with posting is to like put it in the hands of a friend or partner and just like ask for help and be like, I need this for my career. I'm doing a bad job at it on my own. I could really use some help. You should help me. If you loved me, you would help me. Changing should to will. I mean, maybe. The good old post and ghost. That's right. I actually ghost less on my Instagram now than I used to. Like I check out comment sections more often now than back when I was first starting to post, when I had a smaller following. Post and ghost was like my strategy for years. And then things changed, and then now I'm kind of back to just sort of posting and like, if anybody has anything meaningful to say to me in the comments, I'll see it. I think part of it is like over time being an indie creator for so long, I really have grown an appreciation for how contingent my entire career is on like the feelings of my audience And so I've like grown to appreciate their willingness to engage with my stuff more and more. Like when I first started to pop off, I took it for granted that like, oh, if I do this, you know, some number of thousand people are going to hit the like button. And now I'm just like thankful that anyone cares, because it's like I've really grown to appreciate how extraordinary it is that I get to do what I do. And like that's really enabled by the people that like my stuff. So while I'm not probably going to be friends with everybody that likes my work, it's not practical, it's probably not likely. I do recognize that they're like, I used to use the same speech about, oh, thank you so much, I couldn't do this without you, blah, blah, blah. But now I actually like feel it. Why does posting feel difficult? It is a good question. Why does posting feel difficult? I know several people who have real problems with it. Sometimes it's like, you know that like posting's the most important thing you could be doing. And so like, you know that if it goes really, like sometimes I will have a lot of emotional trouble with something. If it's something I know is really important, like if it goes well, it'll be life-changing. If I post this thing and it does what I think it's going to do, my financial situation for the next 5 years could be totally different. And like, knowing that scares the shit out of me. And it makes me not want to hit the button. And there's like a kind of lesser version of that comes with day-to-day posting of like, man, if I do a good job with all this, this could mean a whole lifetime of being able to do art for a living. It could mean, you know, being paid fabulous amounts of money for JPEGs. Like this could be everything. You know, or not. Or it turns out that you are totally delusional and you're not actually that good and no one really cares. And you are going to finally put out the thing that you really cared about and worked on really hard, and no one's going to give a shit. And you're going to find out you're just as worthless as your very worst fears. All your worst fears are going to be confirmed. I think that's what gets people. We wrap up our whole identities in this stuff. It's hard not to. When you hit that post button, it's like you have a possibility of failing on a level that is like deeply personal. You can fail on like the most incredible possible levels. Hi, meat suit. Yeah, it's like if you're not a career artist, it's just like, I'm going to post, like, who cares? Like, and if it does really well, you're like, oh, bonus, awesome, that's sick. Being able to maintain that would be really good. But if you ever had, took a big turn for being a career artist, I have a feeling you're going to struggle a little bit with posting. You know, it's hard to say that you're going to have a lot of trouble with it, but it'll definitely get harder as the stakes go up. And it's not even a money thing. It's like an identity thing, I think. Because like posting about like making sending out a mailing list marketing update that like I have a Kickstarter running feels the same way, has the same kind of anxiety to it. Where it's like, oh my God, if I write this email real good, I'm going to get $100,000. And if I write it real bad, I'm going to get 0. And I don't know which it's going to be. Tips on finding a social media manager, LOL. I had a friend who had done some for another artist, and I was like, could you please be my social media manager? I tried, I worked with a couple of different people. I'm trying to remember who else I had before, but I had a pretty good experience just hiring a friend who was like kind of doing the research on what was the standard in across Instagram and stuff in terms of the meta. They're reading articles. I was like, I don't want to read all the articles to figure out how to post right. Like, can you just read all the articles and post my stuff, and then it won't, like, because I was posting like once every few months, and I should have been posting 3 times a week. And when they took over my account again and started posting 3 times a week, my growth shot way up. I had like a period of like really intense growth, but then it like died off. And we were talking about it a lot, and there was really not like a really clear path forwards for it. And I was feeling better anyways, so I took it over, and I saw a little bit of growth again once I started posting as myself, but it wasn't really that big of a difference. You don't have a lot of personal attachment to it, huh? Sounds convenient. I feel like some of the artists I meet, they have a really, really high level of a sense that like their art represents them, and that like art is like extremely tied to their identity, and that makes it harder for them to do a lot of stuff, like a lot of the business stuff too. Like I find that generally a lot of artists are frustrated by business in part because it like forces them to treat their identity in a way that's a little bit more transactional. For me, I've always enjoyed the business side of things. I look at it from a kind of analytical perspective. There's a sort of analytical remove that I'm capable of when I think about my art, and that's served me really well over the years. If you're able to kind of like keep your emotions separate from the work a little bit, it can allow you to make more shrewd moves when it comes to assessing your own value. I think. My boss hired a TikTok team and social media team. She has people record her working for Reels, and day to day they just post and run it for her. Oh, okay. Yeah, like Pika, like this idea that like you do the art for the love of it, and then like the JPEG at the end is just a side effect of the process. Like that's the ideal, and it is so easy to get away from that. And that's like the point where I'm constantly preaching at people about what they need to get back to. It's like people always start there, and then they get wrapped up in, they start to get good enough where they're like, I'm gonna be a professional, I think. And they try to get serious, and they get wrapped up into their identity, and then it's important that they not do bad, and then like, you know, it starts to become a little toxic. And a lot of what I do when I'm mentoring people is trying to help them unwind that, to be like, let's talk about what you love about art and make sure that we're focusing on that, because when you get too wrapped up in the byproduct, the output, like you can get really fucked up. People will lose years of their career to that shit. Oh, you almost quit art because you're trying to get to a professional level, huh? See, that's the thing. That's what gets people. Sometimes what people do is they go, okay, well, I'm going to become an artist. And they don't want to get a job. They want to do like gaming art. So they try to do like RPGs and Magic the Gathering, shit like that. And they get, the pay on those jobs is shit. But they see that some people are out there making it a full-time living. So they go, I am not going to accept a life that is not making all of my money from art. And they get themselves so fucked up because in order to try to make sure they're never like wasting their time, they'll take a ton of super low paying gigs that paid like less than minimum wage effectively if you count all the hours. And they will like grind away at these like completely unsustainable lifestyles for years at a time, going totally broke and burning themselves out and growing to hate what they do and like telling themselves they just need to want it harder. And it's really, really toxic, really unhealthy. It's bad for the end goal. They don't actually get to where they're going because of that. Instead, they just get, they grind themselves into a corner and they get stuck. See, some people, they get a lot of value out of having a non-art job to take the money side out of it so they can focus on the part that is like important to them, which you already have as a programmer, right? Like, so you actually are in this gifted position of going like, I can just be the best parts of an artist without having to be the financial parts of an artist. And it's like, it creates this leeway that allows you to have a really healthy relationship with the work, which is powerful. It's really powerful. You know, you've probably seen it in some other artists around that like some of them get really, really obsessed with the identity of what it means to be a working artist, and they surround themselves and fill their time up with a bunch of stuff that is like, it's paying them nothing and it's hurting them to work on, but they feel like it's a part of like a larger goal. And it and you can see from the outside it's not working 100%. I've seen people actually upgrade their work and their quality of life by like going and getting a job in like an Amazon warehouse. Like literally any job that like disconnects the money from the art can create a huge life upgrade for some people. But there's this tremendous shame around it that people build in for themselves, or peer pressure to worry about where their money's coming from, that they're not a real professional artist if they're not, you know, grinding away at $100 commissions or whatever. It's just ridiculous. You know, anybody who makes art's an artist. You don't need to be financially supported by art. Yeah, doing endless commissions, it's just like the worst. I actually don't even think it's that good financially. I've found there's paths forward that don't require commissions, that you can, especially if you live in the US, there's real paths forward to never do commissions and to be able to build a full-time independent income off of art. So I really have a bit of a beef with the whole commission culture, because I think it's held a lot of people back in it's kind of a scary way. I mean, it's not just your boss's art goal that you're going for when you're doing work professionally. It's also like, you know, a lot of private commissions, it's really just like someone's D&D character. And there's no future for you in that work. It doesn't end up being portfolio work. It doesn't improve you technically, and it doesn't make you that much money. It's like being caught in a riptide, being slowly sucked out into the ocean. I don't know. I guess you guys can probably tell I get pretty passionate about these things. And it's not really like for my own interest. Like this has never been my jam. I've done a little bit of freelance work in like RPGs and in video games, stuff like that. But like, you know, my main thing has always been doing something else. I get fired up about this because of wanting to see other artists succeed and like being really frustrated with a culture that doesn't always like push them towards success. And one of the things that's getting me right now is like I'm getting into these folds a little bit, but I think I'm losing some of the larger shapes. I need to make sure that the broader values are aligning with the reference the way they need to be. I tried to make sure of that early on, but it's probably best to make sure I'm doing that again before I get into the color, because it's so dependent on the values. Maybe even worth exaggerating a little bit. A lot of people seem to have a very limited view of what it means to make a living as an artist. Usually the more visible stuff, like, oh, you need a lot of followers or for commissions, conventions, etc. When in reality, there are a lot more paths forward than that. Yeah, there are a lot of different paths forward. Like, I've had the luxury of being able to poke my head in on a lot of different kind of like art subcultures. And like, that's one of the main things I always want to express to people is that like, they have this idea of there being this sort of art Mount Olympus where like there's a certain type of artist at the top and they live like gods and everyone else is kind of existing below them. And it's so ridiculous. Especially because there's so many potential destinations out there. I see art as this like endless landscape that you can go and explore, and people like stop and get obsessed with this one weird mountain, and I don't know why. And some of it I think might just be like cultural fluency. Like they're just like, this is like the first place that they found where there was a bunch of other people gathered up, and they just sort of came to assume that that's like what's important and what's reality. And like, in terms of like exposure online, like Dustin and I were just talking about this. Like I'm talking with this one guy. I've met a number of people like this that actually are professionals that have no web presence. That they get so good, they get into a studio and they're really good at what they do, and they develop really good working relationships with their coworkers. And then they never need to make a website or whatever because they're never out of work. Like they just keep getting hired at more and more studios, and they're always like getting rediscovered by more people as they like work with them inside a studio environment. And so they never actually build a web presence, and they don't build a following because it doesn't matter. And so some of the very, very best people that work in the entertainment industry, no one's ever heard of them. Because like they've never needed to find work, and so they don't actually you don't have an opportunity to hear from them. Like there's some people out there that have professional jobs and then they also have like big followings online. But there's a bunch of them. Some of the very best artists in the entertainment industry, no one's ever heard of them outside of professional spheres. And like they'll just keep quietly moving from studio to studio, being rock stars among their peers and otherwise being totally anonymous. Yeah, you've met one. And they just don't care because it's like, for them, they're in a lot of cases I found these are the people that don't really care about building their own personal projects. They really like being a commercial artist. And they don't really like the whole chase of trying to like build a following or whatever. And they just don't need to. They've been completely, they get to completely divorce themselves from the whole process. And it's like really healthy for them. And I think that's cool. I'm going to exaggerate this figure a little bit. Hello, Nexty. I want to draw and collect the bag doing it. Yeah, same. I mean, if I'm going to be 100, for real, I want to get that bag, and I want to draw what I want. That's my goal. I feel a little guilty about it sometimes. Because people are always like, oh, he's just doing it for the money. Not to me, but it's about other stuff. About like their favorite band or like some movie star or whatever shows up on a commercial. Oh, they're just doing it for the money. Man, I want some money. I want to make money. I want to make money doing creative shit. That sounds awesome. People be like, he just spent the last 10 years making exactly the kind of art he wants for the money. I'll be like, yeah, both of those things are true. I wanted to like do that kind of art I wanted, and I wanted to make a bunch of money doing it. You're right. That's 100% true. Yeah, ability to pay rent and food, huge fan. You know what? I live down here in Florida. A law just passed recently that made it so they could deregulate the electricity companies. Because before they had laws that made it so that the electricity companies couldn't gouge their customers. And they're like, well, we need to make sure that you can't that like corporations are allowed to like, you know, operate without the government getting in the way. So they took away those limitations, and our electrical bill jumped up from like $200 a month to $400 a month overnight. We thought that maybe we had a problem with our house, but it turns out that's like the entire state just had their electricity just went up by 100% in Florida across the entire state, and they're just like, this is good because businesses are better than people. I'm like, God damn it. All right, well, time to figure out how to make $200 a month more than I was before, I guess. Like, because what else am I going to do? Yeah. Well, it's like not really capitalism, because it's like in a capitalistic market there'd be competition, but there's no competition in electrical costs. So like you can't go to another electrical company. You have to go to Florida Power and Light. So FPL is going to get your money one way or the other. It's just they get to tell you how much it costs. And before, the government was stepping in the way and say, no, we should make sure that like, you know, it's a fair amount, and like the company's not going to go out of business, but like the people should be able to, you know, afford electricity. And like now that's not the case, and you know, I don't know what people are gonna do. I'm gonna hustle my way to take care of it. I've always hustled my way to make what I need, but like, you know, most people aren't as obsessed with this stuff as I am, and so there's a lot of people who are gonna get, it's gonna put them in a bad situation. No way to affect it. I mean, I don't have a personal way of affecting that. What do I want out of this gradient map? Man, bummer politics. Create your own electricity company. Yeah, I'm just gonna bootstrap my own electrical company. Clearly the solution is that we should all become CEOs of electrical companies. So the yellow-blue thing that I got going on before, the kind of olive-green overall thing is starting to like jive with the color scheme nicely, which is good. Kind of want to introduce some more prismatic hues into this because it's very monochrome at the moment. It's very drab. There's these oranges that are emerging at the corners of the lights here. I can definitely bring in some of that with the hard light. That one's easy to scrape in. I just wonder if there's more places where light could be showing up in the corners of things, you know? Stylize it a little bit. I also think maybe a little bit of the glow from the sky, a little bit of the blue glow from the sky over the top of it might add to a greater sense of realistic lighting, but also, you know, add a little interest to the color palette. So you can see that, like, as we go across from top to bottom here, it gets a little lighter and a little bluer over the course of the length. Like the tones here on the pant leg over here, they've got more reflected blue in them than up at the top, it feels like. It's a subtle difference, but I think all these things tend to add up. I'm trying to put the blue over the top to get it feeling a little reflected. It works in the top, in like her white top is like a perfect candidate for reflecting some of this sky color. But then when you put it over the skin, her skin's turning kind of ashen, and that's really not the right direction to get it to read well. Bringing in those oranges over the skin tone has made a huge difference. All right, so a little bit of color there. I still, when I'm thinking about like a little bit more prismatic color, I mean, I really think that adding in some jewel tones mixed in here and there just to kind of poke out and add some like vibrancy that's kind of poking out from underneath it, I think could do a lot to like boost the overall look of the image, because we have a little bit of that in like these corners of the light that are coming in. You can see those bright oranges emerging in the cracks at the edges of the rim light. And then you can see like these reds that are coming in the, this is interesting. These reds that are coming in the shadows. I love putting reds in the shadows because like you can pick these deeper shadow bits and give them like a red accent, and it always makes it feel like a really deep color. But I don't know why there's like, I wonder if it's something having to do with the color grading or if it's reflecting something red underneath her off camera. It's much redder than I'm expecting. I'll take it. There's a little bit of the blue reflecting off, blue sky reflecting off like the top of the forehead. I'll see if I can pump that up without making it look fucked up. I reinstalled everything tablet, fully ready to get back to studies, ready to create abominations, Also took the brushes and gradients. Thank you, Pete. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, I got to update my gradient pack. I've added a couple since I output that gradient thing, so I've got to get it updated. We discovered that there's something weird with, like, we're using Squarespace for the Huckleberry.art website right now, where that stuff's being distributed, and there's a glitch that's affecting a lot of Squarespace users where it's doing something to the file where when the browser goes to download the file that you've gotten from, like, their file service, the browser's like, yo, we are almost 100% sure this is a virus. And it's just like, it's a Squarespace thing. Squarespace is doing something to the files, and they're like, or like the way they're distributing them is like setting off browsers like virus protection in like a scary way. Trying to figure out how to make it so that people don't feel like they're taking their life into their hands by like downloading free brushes. Yeah, that little hit of orange across the cheek, I mean, even you see, just doing a little visual mixing, I think it makes a big difference in terms of the sense of the tones underneath. And I want to keep this vibe loose. Saying that, it's been hard to maintain. It's like, I have to feel like I have to concentrate to not concentrate. What is going on here? There's like a weird haze happening here. Is that just not getting touched enough? Needs a... Whoa, look at these brush strokes. What the hell happened there? You know, it's funny, we were talking about what it takes to create art. Sometimes means like maintaining this sense of like making things just for the sake of it and letting the JPEG just be a byproduct. There was this moment, I don't remember what conversation I was in, but I was talking about how being an artist in a lot of ways is this process of trying to do things on accident, on purpose, over and over again. It made me think of that. We'll also create a sketchbook on Discord. Thank you. Should be good. Catalog the progress. I mean, you can use only the round brush forever. I'm proof of it. I didn't start using anything besides the round brush for the first 10 years of my career. Could never quite figure it out, like what these other brushes are for. I want a little bit more. I want to push this color even more if I can. I don't know what though. These teals and oranges coming in. I just wonder, should I be bringing in some more greenish yellow or whatever to mix with it visually? Like in these gray tones especially, it sort of calls out to have these mixtures of colors kind of separating out, you know, kind of chromatic aberration. Easy to do with the grays. I'm going to get into some of the final opaque painting and see what happens as far as playing around with some of these final details, loosening up some edges, creating some texture, maybe blotting out some of these hard edges I've been making, get it back to a little bit of a softer state parts, find fun places to put color. I've got 20 minutes theoretically. I made decent progress today for the time. I'm going to have to get in close though if I'm going to do details. Square brush kind of person. I mean, I think a square brush is pretty cool. You can do everything you want with a square brush. The round brush has always spoken to me. There's this like scrapey looking brush that I got from Ash that is like set to multiply by default. So when you go back over areas, like at first you can lay in light colors and then it automatically starts building in shadows the more you go over it. I didn't think that I wanted that, but then I tried it out once and I was like immediately kind of on board with it. If there's any kind of streaming playlists you guys like, feel free to shout them out. This is the one that we found first. It's been serving me pretty well, but I'm open to other stuff also. I'm realizing that as I'm getting into concentration mode, I'm leaving a lot of music on and less chit-chat. There's an artist that uses round brush a bunch in their stuff. Yeah, I usually like chit chat online, or I listen to podcasts, or I watch movies while I'm painting. But it's like I don't think that Twitch wants me to watch John Wick on the other screen while I'm talking with you guys. I don't think anybody here wants to watch me quietly like rewatch old movies while I paint. And also, yeah, copyright. A little challenging. That little old thing we call copyright, U.S. Copyright Office. DMCA takedowns. Having fun with this one today. I don't know if it's any good, but I am having fun with it. My desire to stay a little looser is like intermittent in its success. I want to push it further, the looseness, the sense of interpretation, the style. But I'm going to just continue to hold that aspiration in my mind going into every day. And, one of these days I think it's going to bust loose. Because I feel like I'm like learning, I'm like tiptoeing towards it. I'm like, when the weather's a little colder, I like tiptoe into the pool, and I'm only able to like, let my skin get cold like 1 inch at a time. So I slowly ease my way in. Though I've gotten better about that. I've gotten better about it. As I'm like in a better and better place mentally, I'm just able to go like, I'll just be cold for a second. It's fine. Just jump in. It's like a mental strength that sometimes is higher and sometimes it's lower. And like, when it's high, I can hop in the pool easier. I feel like. Comfort with the idea that discomfort is temporary. Do you think it's generally speaking better starting with grayscale, or you can start with base color and then adding light and shadow values? Adding light and shadow values to a single flat color is really tough, because like the resulting colors aren't always what you need. I mean, that's one of the reasons that why I have this process. It's like it changes a little bit depending on what the content of the image is. I've met people who they say that they could not imagine working black and white, that nothing about it makes sense to them. They hate doing it. It feels awful, and they never want to be a part of it. And personally, I love it. And so I do it, and they don't. There's no better or worse. This is art. If you love working in black and white first and taking it to color, just keep doing it. And if you can only ever imagine working in color first, just do that. It's easy. Thank you, Taiki. Yeah, I think the subject affects like the process quite a bit too. Like I feel like the colors that I'm trying to get affect like how much I emphasize each stage of my color process even. tangent here with the strap coming off the overalls. I think I'm going to try to exaggerate a little bit so that it's a little more readable than the original photo. What if you don't like starting in black and white, but you get better results that way and faster? Are you saying, well, like, don't like it as in, like, you just feeling impatient? Do you feel like do you feel like you're being impatient, or you just really don't like? And what do you mean by better results? Are you sure they're better? Now, people always have this, like, well, what if the two things are an opposite of each other? What if I can't? What if there's something about the way that this works? What if I do what it feels like the universe wants from me and it makes me miserable? I don't know. I don't think it comes up that much. I think generally people's desire for their own art and their artistic interests tend to align pretty well. And if you feel like they're not aligning, I think that you might be missing something about either the words you're using to define the thing, or maybe, like, you know, there's a little bit of disagreement about whether or not you're creating a weird alternate definition for what it means for something to be good or better. Generally, the sense of, like, the ways that are comfortable for you, that create the best results fastest, also tend to be the most pleasurable. Even slowing down, even working slower tends to, like, make things go faster. Even if you love being a little bit more nitpicky and slowing down, you tend to get to where you're going better, faster. There's very few exceptions to the rule of, like, follow your gut, do what feels right. Yeah, the question might be, why am I feeling so anxious about this? I feel like when people come to me and they say there's something dramatically misaligned about their interests with their process, there's usually some fundamental thing they're kind of leaving out of the conversation. It's hard to say over a chat. It's really tough to say over a chat. I tend to, like, really enjoy getting into these conversations with people when I've got time to spend time and get to know them. Ziozen, hello. Thanks. Just talk about it on Discord while streaming. Yeah. Oh, trick-rimmed glasses girl. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you should. I mean, if you feel like there's something really screwed up with like your relationship to your work, definitely talk to somebody about it. But like, also consider that like most of the people you're ever going to talk to on the internet are just some person who likes to run their mouth and not necessarily someone who knows you or knows what you need. Like if you can get expert advice back from somebody who like knows you intimately, like, you know, if you have like a teacher or a mentor that really understands and respects like what you're creating and how you work, really has a real insight into your process, that would be ideal. And then most other people on the internet are just going to like, you know, they're mostly talking to themselves, I find. People have their own agenda and they'll just like give you whatever advice they wish they were getting, without any real respect for like what you're going through or what your interests are. So talk to people about it if you're feeling like you're struggling with something and you want to like work through it, especially process-wise. See what other artists are up to. But like if you don't have anybody who really knows you and really understands you, I would say talk to people about it and then ignore everything you hear. Talk to people about it as a means of thinking out loud, and then go back to whatever you were going to do anyway. Because, I mean, they're not the ones doing the work. You're the one doing the work. My art style is something that you hope to be good at. Lineless with more painting like. I don't know, but if you're comfortable doing lines, just do lines. Lines are great. You shouldn't aspire to be anyone but yourself artistically. Personality-wise, you should be the coolest person that you know. You can fake it. You can fake a personality. You can't fake an art style. Even bought an XP pen tablet last year. Haven't finished anything. Oh, well, you don't need art block. Yeah, I mean, if you like lines, you like lines. I mean, it's just like any other major personality trait. You know, you like what you like. That's just it. Love is love, man. I hate making lines. I can't stand working in lines. Ugh, it's so slow and it feels like tedium and frustration, and it feels like going to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned. It's just like, you know, I'll do it if I need to, but geez, like, it's not how I want to be spending a Tuesday. And for all those freaks that love to make lines, I mean, they can have all the lines in the universe. They can take those lines home every single night, and I'll wave at them as they go out the door. Bye. Have fun. See you guys around next time. Whatever you want to do. Whatever your thing is, it's all right. I find people get art block when they have an expectation for themselves about the kind of things they're supposed to be making. We were talking earlier about how should is this kind of like curse word, like that it's like it's this word that like summons evil, you know. Should brings pain into the universe, at least when it comes to art. I mean, that's exactly why, because You get this sense, oh, I should be doing that, should be doing that. You just do nothing instead. I wish people would do anything art-wise rather than nothing. That's why I hate when people say should. Gets them so stuck. Cross-hatching has left the chat. Yeah, bye, cross-hatching. Fucking see you later. You have a good life. Oh, you want to do pointillism? Yep. You can have all the pointillism. I'll give away all the pointillism. If I had all the pointillism in the world, I would give it away. I don't want any. I could live my whole life doing little brush strokes. Worked out for me for the last 20 years, and I'm going to keep going with it. I have no reason to change. I just keep getting what I want every time I go sit down. Can you imagine that? Wanting something every day and then always getting it? It's not bad. If you have the opportunity, you should take it. It was when you stopped trying to be good when everything started going better. Ah, the Wu Wei. Wu Wei. The Taoist philosophy of trying without trying. It is with one abandons effort that they unlock their true potential. Should is the mind killer. Absolutely. You have a long essay in response to this? The short answer for me is that I stopped expecting to be as good and people admired. There you go. What did the change look like in terms of your day-to-day drawing practice? Not much. I just stopped being miserable. Lamau. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's really just like if you can seriously just like let go of it. Like so much of when I'm working with people in mentorship is just like it's me just trying to get them to let go of stuff. It's like most people will like discover what they need to discover about art through just repetition, exploration. But the part that gets people really fucked up is the stuff that you need to actively like dispel and get rid of. Like convincing people to release these ideas and just leave them behind ends up being far more powerful at a certain step than like getting them to try to do something different, like or try to do some work in specific. It really is like there's a certain amount of art that is made better simply just by letting go. There are long essays on this. There are whole books on this. I found entire tomes of Chinese philosophy specifically about this topic of trying to find a sort of natural order by reducing your effort and reducing your personal strain. Like it's the whole like Tao Te Ching is basically a book about that. And then there's Zhuangzi, also part of the Taoist canon. Very good stuff, interesting stuff. Potentially very useful for somebody who is already starting to identify those characteristics and like being able to like self-identify them in the moment and use them, but maybe not useful to somebody who is currently trapped. If you are currently stuck in a huge way because you are lost in the effort of something, it's like reading the Tao Te Ching is not going to change you. It's not going to no one's. It's like it takes like an hour and a half to read. No one's been spontaneously enlightened and transformed by reading the Tao Te Ching. But it is a useful touchstone for somebody who's interested in more thoroughly exploring the sort of idea of Wu Wei.
Thick-rimmed glasses girl wants to know the inspiration behind your VTuber.
Behind my VTuber? Oh, this is one of my characters. This is Azrael, the Angel of Death. He's my favorite guy out of my pantheon. And also, I had a nice portrait painting of him where he's facing straight on. So I was able to hack that painting up and turn it into a VTuber as a little experiment. I got to go back and like do some cleanup, or maybe I was thinking about doing a chibi version. I thought would maybe better fit for my totally unserious voice. Ooh, I might be done. Pretty close here to being done, and I'm just about on time too. I want to add a little bit more of these like weird jewel tones that I've snuck in here. There's a little bit more of them up at the top. Could do a little bit to sell this idea, because I do like it. Sounds dumb, but the thing for me was just accepting that I wasn't particularly talented or good at art. I was just a normal person who hadn't put in enough hours yet, so I shouldn't expect to be good yet. That's a very pragmatic way to look at it. I mean, I've never felt like I was particularly talented. The thing that is sort of a stand-in for talent for me, like I quickly got to a point where people were responding to my work, my style, and looking, and I spent a lot of time thinking about, where did that originate from? And as I look back on it, I think it was actually a kind of willful desire to ignore good advice, and just like a selfish desire to sort of like treat everything like I already knew what was best for myself, and just do my own exploration instead of seeking out the like proper educational wisdom on these kinds of topics. And so by like going through and just learning hard learning lessons myself instead of actually like just looking up the answers, I felt like I ended up creating a little bit of something. It wasn't better than what other people had, it was just more mine. I just had a more direct relationship with it, and it better represented kind of my own perspective. And then I discovered that people really love perspective. They like to see an artist's perspective in the work. They want something that's novel and unique and personal. People like authenticity, and they like to see the artist in the work. And by shunning a lot of the things that were normal and correct and just sort of like trying to backwards engineer things myself got me to accomplish that sooner. But like the downside of it was that I didn't know what the hell I was doing in a lot of cases. So I was, as I explained earlier, I would get jobs and then I would immediately get fired because they would discover almost immediately I didn't know what I was doing. It was a different skill set to learn how to like do art predictably from being able to do it well sometimes. Developing a style and a voice and like a sense of identity artistically, to doing that first served me really well in this environment. I think it would have been bad if I were a apprentice in the Renaissance or something. I would have been a terrible Renaissance artist. But for 2020s, the 2010s, I think it worked out awesome. Very happy with it. By the book person. I've seen it. You're trying to speed run art, and you are going through all the lessons in the correct order, and you're learning all the underlying skills. And not a bad thing, but now you are left. You have a bit of your own voice in your work, but that there is, if you ever want to push further in that direction, there's still a whole other dimension to this art thing that is like to be explored still. Goes beyond the book learning. It's more of a personal exploration. Oops. I've met a lot of professional artists who feel really, really, really trapped when it comes to that stuff. They've spent years working for other companies, and they can create very professional entertainment products, but what they do not know how to do is create an OC. And yet there are all these teenagers on DeviantArt that seem to have absolutely no trouble making an OC. So, like, what do we say? Do we say that, like, learning to be able to make your own OCs is a skill, or do we say that it's a worthless piece of trash and only children do it? I don't know. I like to put value on it, personally. Some kind of special sauce art I love has, and mine doesn't. I can put words to that real easily. Everyone feels that way about their work. If your art didn't have the special sauce, you wouldn't be getting so many goddamn likes and subscribes. The thing is that we're like inoculated against our own sauce. Like, we don't really get to see the ways that other people see our work, and we don't get to see what's special about it. It always looks flat in comparison to other people, and it like that feeling never goes away no matter how good you get. And like, I've met artists who are late in life who believe that's what is happening with them, and they are like some of the most widely celebrated artists in the world. They're just geniuses, they're masters of their craft, and yet they feel like they're still missing that secret sauce and they don't know how to put their finger on it. Yeah, you just don't get it. You're never gonna get that feeling with your work, no matter what you develop out of it. No matter how much you work on, learning to build a voice or your skills or whatever, you're always gonna feel that way, unless you start to have like some sort of like manic episode. Maybe, I think in a manic episode you might start believing that you're the greatest artist of all time, and then and then you'll feel awesome about it. That's not something necessarily to be desired. Coming to acceptance with the fact that you don't really see what other people see in your work is like way easier than it's way easier in your relationships than triggering some kind of Kanye-like manic episode where you believe that you're like a genius. Yeah, I'm done. I could keep going with this because I am having fun with it. But I think I'm gonna maybe try to do a little. I like the dynamic nature of this thing. So if I want to do a smear rather than doing it vertically, I wonder if it's makes sense to smear diagonally. The most minor of possible innovations here. Looks kind of like motion lines then. I'm not a super big fan of that. Part of the reason I like the smears is because they feel more like it's sort of glowing. Like it's it often feels like a glint. You have an OC, but you don't really have a background story or world to put them in. Some people have entire novels and backstories. Okay, so here's the other thing about OCs. I like there's two different ways of going about world building. There's top down and there's bottom up. Top down is you go, okay, so there's this magical city of Parathia or whatever, right? And in Parathia, they have this very particular social structure. And then there's like these people, there's these people in there, they have these special kinds of knights and wizards or whatever, they do this. And it's all just like, you build out this whole like top level view of the world, like you're a game master, and you build all these pieces. And that's what people are doing. They're like, oh, this is my character's backstory, and this is how their relationship is with this other character, and blah, 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 blah. And they start there. Personally, I don't like listening to people's stories, top-down stories. I think they're boring. And this is true of like even like popular movies and series and novels and stuff that are very top-down. I don't care. I like character stuff. I like stories and characters that are built from themes first, and that like the themes inform the characters. So it's bottom up. So for mine, it's like it's all like there's these characters and each one of them is sort of representing a different like feeling or vibe or memory or concept or something like that, and they're just like a personification of like of an experience. And like I'm building a bunch of my OCs always represent a kind of personal experience. They're not like a character with a backstory. They're more like you know the feeling when this happens. It's like it's the difference between like a story where somebody's telling, like trying to get you invested in a set of characters, and one where it's like a comic that's just like, hey, don't you relate to it when your cat does this? But like you can create something that feels like a relatable moment or character or archetype or something. I really like archetypal characters that follow along with like a well understood sort of human experience. And so your OC can represent to you a particular sort of like time in your life, or a particular experience that you has happened to you often, or like a certain mindset that you have that is you find yourself falling back into a kind of persona, a sort of subdivision of your larger self, larger, more complex self. Those kinds of OCs I find to be more compelling because they say something about the commonality between us as people. You know, if you can relate to this thing, then maybe we relate to each other. You know, that's the part about art that I'm really into, more so than people telling me about their D&D character. I can give a shit. Yeah, I got the hair straightened out a little bit. I keep wanting to poke around here and there because it's like overall been a pretty successful one, and I just don't want to leave like areas where I'm unhappy with it. But being a perfectionist about it isn't going to help me. So, okay, one more edit and then I'm going to call it. There we go. Calling it. For real. For real, on God. Number 76 in the books. Oh, we can read Meat Canyon, sure. Yeah, if you just want to draw a cool character, that's an OC. Like if you just like decide like what's the coolest looking one of these I can come up with, that's an OC. And that's all you need. I like that level of like I'm just going to do whatever I want, that's valid. All right. Well, have a good flight, and thanks for stopping by the chat. It's always nice chit-chatting with you. We're gonna raid Meat Canyon. See if Daddy Meat Canyon gives me some attention. Hmm? Oop, I just need to select the URL so I can get past the what do you call them? The ads. All right. See you guys on the other side.